This edition of 5P with LaMondre is being presented by Root Global Impact, a multifaceted disability inclusion firm that amplifies your impact and creates inclusion leaders. To learn more about Root Global Impact, go to our website, rootglobal.com. That's RUHglobal.com. Today, I have a very special show for you. We're going to be talking about small businesses. We're going to talk about what being a small business is, what being the owner of a small business can do for your life, and we're going to give you some tips on getting started or transforming your business. I have a phenomenal guest today. So let's go.
Welcome to 5P with LaMondre, the podcast that's all about the 5 Ps. People, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. If you're looking to be encouraged, inspired, and challenged, then this is the podcast for you. Here's your host, LaMondre.
Welcome to 5P with LaMondre. I am your host, LaMondre Pugh, and I'm so excited that you chose to listen to this podcast today. Because guess what? You could have been doing anything, but you're taking your time to hear what this little fella has to say. And I am so honored. I don't take that lightly. Today's show is really special to me because I am a small business owner and I know what my struggles have been. I know what challenges I've faced, but I've also recognized the victories and the opportunities that owning a small business has afforded me. And just to kind of give you an idea of the impact that small businesses have, particularly here in the U.S., there are over 30 million small businesses in the U.S., according to the Small Business Administration. And when we hear that, we think, okay, that's a lot of small businesses, but what does that do in terms of comparison of business in general? Well, the truth is 99.9% of the businesses in the U.S. are small businesses. So let that sink in. That means when we talk about the economy, when we talk about how well the economy is doing, really it all falls on the backs of small business. And I know that there are a lot of people that are wanting to start small businesses, but they're not really sure of how to get started. And many times they simply don't know where to turn. Well, on today's show, my guest is going to help us kind of navigate some of that field. But we're also going to talk about how she got started and what she's doing in small business. So let me say it this way. Simply put, my guest today is a phenomenal human being. She's a certified business and leadership coach. She's a professor and international speaker. She's a publisher, and she's the author of What Becomes of a Broken Soul and Shifting into Purpose, The Journey of Entrepreneurship. It is absolutely my pleasure to welcome Raquel M R Thomas. Welcome to the show, Raquel.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. It's great to be sitting in such a room where there's so much inspiration.
Oh, well, I tell you what, you brought the inspiration with you because as I started reading your books, I started learning about your story and your journey, and it is truly inspirational. And I'll tell you, sometimes people say, this is like inspiration porn. What is all this? But I will tell you the God honest truth. I'm inspired by your journey. I'm inspired by what you do, and it's freaking amazing.
You know, I talked to individuals, and they said, you know what, I read your first book, and my God, like I would have never known. And I tell people, you don't have to look like what you've been through. And what I went through was for me to save and help someone else. It wasn't for me. So I got through it, and now I'm in the process of helping other people get through it, which kind of leads me to a lot of the work that I do independently. The segment Closing the Wealth Gap is a huge part of just when I grew up, we didn't have anyone there to talk to us about, legacy,
right?
Entrepreneurship,
right?
And how do you get there? And, that's how you close the wealth gap. It's a huge wealth gap in our country, as most people know. And if you don't know, we're about more than 200 years behind Caucasians, the African American community, are 200 plus years behind in wealth.
Yeah. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. You have a series that I've seen on Facebook called Closing the Wealth Gap. Now, tell me a little bit more about that, because this is really a great series.
So Closing the Wealth Gap, Pain, Truth, and Money. That's the name of the segment. And I think we're on episode 7 or 8 at this point. But we literally talk about how do we go into underserved communities, African-American communities, minority communities, and close the wealth gap. And what is it going to require from all of us? Because it's not one person, two people can't do it. It requires a community of people, a tribe of people coming together. So we literally talk about all the things that we can do to literally close the wealth gap and to narrow that 200 plus years down, because we have the number one buying power in our country, African Americans. We spend more money than any other group of people, but yet we are the poorest group of people.
Right.
So we talk about just economics, we talk about leadership, we talk about finances, we talk about buying back our own communities, we talk about successful entrepreneurs going back into the community and pouring dollars into those communities, but more importantly, time, giving them their time. I believe that entrepreneurship is the fastest way to do it. If you open up businesses in your own communities, it's the fastest way to grow your community. If you open businesses in your community, because you put more tax dollars, you can, increase the highways, have better schools, et cetera, if the tax dollars are there.
And I think that is an important piece. And I love the concept about you're focusing on minority communities, particularly the African American communities. And, that's a part of the mission that I also uphold. It's about helping disenfranchised groups to really realize some prosperity, to realize some empowerment. And honestly, we've been left behind quite a bit. In the beginning, I said that there are over 30 million small businesses in the U.S., but only 8 million of those are minority owned.
Right.
And so even a smaller portion of that then is African American. Now, when we start thinking about small business, and I want to back up just a little bit because I want to kind of give a picture of small business and what that means for our communities, what that means particularly for groups that have been disenfranchised. So when we start thinking about small businesses, and as I said, in the U.S., only about 8 million of those small businesses are minority owned. What does that mean in terms of lifting that community or even that individual? How does having a small business impact someone's lives? Because I want to break this down into some really basic terms.
I think the biggest thing is, when we go to a job, and there's nothing wrong with a 9-to-5 job. I've had a 9-to-5 job. When we retire and we're done, we can't hand that off.
Right.
When you own your own business, you literally can transfer that wealth to your children, your nieces, your nephews, your family, your friends, whomever. That's one of the biggest things I think we don't think about in the minority communities, African American communities, when we think about business and entrepreneurship. You literally are leaving behind a legacy.
Right.
Generational wealth. Right? It's almost non-existent in the African American community. There's no generational wealth. So when we talk about business and entrepreneurship, it is one way, that we leave behind generational wealth. That is how we change the trajectory of our children's lives, our family lives. So when I think about entrepreneurship, that's the first thing that comes to mind for me. Creating a legacy, being able to leave something behind, creating generational wealth.
Right.
Small businesses also. We talked about this briefly already, how important it is to open up small businesses in your own communities so that you can put those dollars back into your own community. They start to circulate in your community and you start to build and grow your own community,
right?
Which allows for you to, number one, gentrification is huge right now, right?
Absolutely.
Instead of having outsiders come and buy your community, you can buy your own community.
Right.
I think when I think about entrepreneurship and I think about minorities, I also think about small investment groups coming together collectively, putting your monies together and buying a community,
right,
and making it what you need it to be instead of waiting on those like President Trump to come in and make it what you need it to be. You have to start creating that yourself. So when I think of small business, I'm thinking of what goes beyond today and tomorrow.
Right.
I think about what could be 20 years from now. How much work can we do to improve our children's and grandchildren's lives 20 years from now?
And see, and I think that two phrases, well, one phrase in particular that you brought up, but two things that popped into my head was when you started talking about it, we already mentioned legacy. And so that was one of the phrases. But then the second thing was heritage or inheritance.
That's right.
What are you leaving for the next generation? What are you leaving for those who come behind you? And I think that those are key things that we have to think about. And I also love what you just said about starting small investment groups. When we start to think about investments, many times we think millions of dollars, or we think huge companies or hedge fund managers or venture capitalist kinds of money. But no, I mean, you literally could be talking about something as little as you get a group of friends and you guys pull together $100 a month from each person to go and make something happen.
And you build. I'm always talking about small investment groups. It's been a long time dream for me to have a small investment group with people that look like me.
Right.
Everyone comes to the table with a certain dollar amount, and then you go out and you start buying real estate because there is really power in numbers. We hear that a lot, but there's power in numbers. So if it's 5 of us versus just me by myself, I can't do the work of 5 people.
Right.
But if we come together and it's 5 of us, we change our communities at a faster pace, in my opinion. One of the things that I was sitting here thinking was we look at generational wealth and some of our Caucasian counterparts, they're second, third generation into wealth, right? Well, one of the things that we could do, and it's very simple, is instead of having term insurance policies, have whole life insurance policies. That way, when we pass, when our time is up, our race is over, and we've done our job here, when we pass away, we leave wealth to our children through insurance. It is one of the oldest, I don't want to say tricks because it's not a trick. It's very open and transparent. But one of the oldest tricks in the books is literally to insure yourself well enough that in death, your children are taken care of. Yeah. Generational wealth. And that is how our counterparts have done it, 50 years, 70 years, 80 years ago. That's how you got to the second generation of wealth.
Right. And that's how you left something to pass on, because ultimately, if you couldn't save it, if you didn't build it outside of that, that's the way that happened. Yeah. And I'll tell you, though, now, so here's the struggle that I think that people have had, because you just said by whole life, and what we were told for at least, probably the last 30 years, especially with, some, and this is not a mark against multi-level marketing companies, but there's some multi-level marketing companies out there that aggressively approach you and say, forget whole life, buy term, because when you buy term, I even remember the catchphrase, buy term and invest the difference. And that way, by the time that term is up, the idea behind it is that your investments would have then picked up, and that it would have done it. Now, I don't know anybody that has actually panned out that way. And I'm not talking about people who were involved in these companies. Right. And I won't dare say their names. But what I've realized is that I don't know anybody who those investments actually paid out dividends to the point where they could actually replace their insurance. But that was the catchphrase. And we bought that.
I'll tell you this. So I just yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone, and I said, we were talking about insurance and whole life insurance and a difference. And we were talking about investments because with the coronavirus kind of going rampant right now, we were talking about the stock market and how it's crashing and, things just aren't going well. People are starting to panic about their 401ks, their investments, et cetera. And we started to talk about insurance. And I said, my grandmother was 80 years old when she passed away. And she had whole life insurance. So she understood, obviously, or someone said to her at some point, do not get term insurance. But for all 5 of her children, she had a whole life insurance policy in each of their names. And it wasn't a lot of money. The policies were $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. But that's a lot of money when you're talking about an 80-year-old, right? You know, she's born in the top of the 19th century.
Right.
But how smart was she to invest at that time into whole life insurance versus term insurance? Because she would have clearly outlived her term insurance.
Right.
Right. So I grew up not in a family that was based around entrepreneurship, but I did have a grandmother that planned for the future. And it wasn't how we're talking right now, but it was her concept of it, you know, having an 11th grade education and taking the tools she did have to create whatever generational wealth she could, she did.
Right.
So for me, that was a huge lesson. Like as soon as I got my first real job, you know, I got whole life insurance outside of the job that you work for, because
Right.
a lot of people don't realize when you leave that job, you leave that insurance as well.
Right.
So you need to have independent policies if you're planning to use that as one of your tools as generational wealth for the next generation of your family.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things, again, you keep sprinkling these little nuggets that trigger thoughts. In me, one of the things that I think that you said was key was that, you know, your grandmother had an 11th grade education. However, she understood the concept of, okay, we need to do something to move these forward. She had that foresight to do that. I think that's what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur looks at what he or she has, what's in there, what they can actually put their hands on, what they can control, and they utilize that to solve a problem for someone else. And solving that problem brings then value to them.
That's right.
You know, it's so interesting because I know, you know, people say, well, I have to have this much in order to get started. Or if this, or if the planets are not aligned in the exact perfect order, if everything is not just so, I can't start my business until that point.
Do it anyway.
That's what I say. My thing is get started anyway. And yes, you plan. Yes, you try to come up with whatever strategies, and you try to, where you take evaluation of your resources and say, what is it that I have and what is it that I don't have? But ultimately, with all the planning, with all the analysis, with all of that, get started.
Yeah.
Because it's really about what's in front of me.
Yeah, you have to use what's in your hands right now, you know, and you have to ask yourself, what do I have in my hand? And that's what you do. That's what you use to get started, because it's never perfect. It's never perfect. There's always something. And tomorrow isn't promised, more importantly. We don't know if we have tomorrow. So while you may be waiting on tomorrow, you may not be granted life tomorrow. Yeah. So it's so important for you to start where you are and you build. Yes, you research. Yes, you prepare. Yes, you plan. All those things. But you can't keep saying, I'm going to wait for the perfect moment, because there's really not a perfect moment to start your business. And, you know, I tell people all the time, God gave all of us gifts and talents.
Absolutely.
Tap into yours.
Absolutely.
And monetize them.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. And that is the philosophy that I lead by. I honestly, as a person with a disability, I've seen discrimination, particularly in areas of employment, because, you know, you could do great in terms of the over-the-phone interview. They love your resume. You test it off the charts. And when you go in there and they see you, sorry,
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
the roles have already been filled. And quite frankly, I got to the point where I started thinking, if they won't hire you, hire yourself. And of course, when I started thinking like that, that was about creating a job for myself. But then something happened, and it was like, wait a minute, though. Not only do I want to create a job for myself, I want to create jobs for other people.
That's right. Other people. When we share the wealth and we share our knowledge, our finances, you know, we're stronger. Because we're stronger together.
Yeah.
We're always stronger together versus as being individuals. And, you know, strength comes from different things, obviously. But, you know, when we can build in numbers, we're more powerful.
Yeah. No. It really is amazing. And the beautiful part about that, I love the sharing the wealth, because I also work with a company called Real Global Impact. They support this show, actually, and I serve as their Chief Sustainability Officer. And again, this is an organization that the CEO is Deborah Rue. She has a child with a disability, and what we are is a disability inclusion firm. Now, what's great about this is that most of the people that work with the organization are people like myself.
Yeah.
People who are great technologists because we're really heavy into technology in the company. And they're people with disabilities. And we help solve problems for major corporations. And the thing that I love about that, it's the entrepreneur in Deborah that saw that. And this is why I work with Deborah. This is why I support the entire organization because of that. So it's that exact same thing, exactly what you're talking about. Disenfranchised communities coming together saying we have to take control of our own destiny.
That's right.
We have to take control of our own path. Now, one of the things that I do want to get to is I listed some of your accomplishments and things that you have done. And again, I won't dare say you're a phenomenal woman. You're a phenomenal human being because
Thank you so much.
It far transcends so many different things. But how did you get started? Where did this drive to be an entrepreneur come from?
So I'll say this: I grew up in poverty. Both my parents were drug addicts, in and out of jail. Lived around a lot of drugs and alcoholism, and I just knew that I wanted something different. I knew that I didn't want that life. So what I realized was, okay, if I go to school and I get good grades, it'll give me a ticket to go to college to get out. So that's kind of where it started. That's all I wanted initially. And I think around third grade, I realized I wanted to be an author, right? And I wasn't thinking necessarily of being a business owner, but I knew that I wanted to be an author because I've always written poems and my thoughts and, short stories. So I knew that. So I thought I'm going to be an author when I grow up. Right. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a fire lady or, police officer. I wanted to be an author. And as I went through elementary school, middle school, I started doing little things. Like I had these small businesses all the time. I didn't look at them as small businesses, but I would sell candy. I would bring a deck of cards to school, and I would play cards with some of the guys. We'd play something called Tonkin Pity Pat, which is a Southern thing, but I would sell pencils. I would buy a pack of pencils and sell a pencil for $0.25. Someone didn't have a pencil. And I realized I was actually operating small businesses. And by the time I got to high school, I joined FBLA, which was a business club.
Future Business Leaders of America.
That's right. And that's when I knew. So by the time I graduated from high school, I knew that I would be a business owner. I didn't know what yet, but I knew that I would be a business owner. It felt right. So when I went into undergrad, I was a business major. I never changed my major. I have an MBA. I've always known. My first career job was with a corporation, and I was a corporate manager for about 8 years, and I gained tons of knowledge, and I got to a place where I said, okay, I'm ready. I was being challenged by some things morally with the company that I was working for and made lots of money, but wasn't happy anymore. So kind of got pushed out of the nest, and I've been asking God to grant me entrepreneurship, right? Like walk me through those doors. And he did. He pushed me out of the nest at that corporate job. And, I opened my first business. It was a commercial janitorial business. Within the first year, we signed multiple commercial contracts. From there, I just had my first kid, and I struggled with leaving him. So I opened up daycare. And the rest is history, man. I just got into academia and started realizing that my gift I thought was just entrepreneurship, right? Mm-hmm. But then I really realized that my gift was teaching it to people that look like me.
Right.
So at first I thought my gift was just having the ability to open businesses, understand business. But then I realized my gift, the thing that God really wanted me to do was teach it to his people. Yeah. So I started teaching it. I started teaching it at daycare, and now I have a nonprofit where I teach entrepreneurship. I'm a business and leadership coach where I'm teaching other small businesses, and it's just matriculated to being a teacher.
Right.
As a college professor, I teach business, teach entrepreneurship, and I realized fully, after my first kid was born, that my gift was to teach and to give back to our community. So entrepreneurship started when I was young, and it's grown over the years.
Yeah. there's a statement that says that you will play the role long before you have the title.
Yeah, that's true, right? That's definitely true, especially with me. But I've been doing it for a long time and not really knowing. I just recently released a children's series with my 7-year-old son called Wheezyville Adventures, and it's a entrepreneurship book series for grades pre-K to 5th. And we teach business concepts. We teach how to operate and run a real business, and we do it with things that kids can do right now. So the lemonade stand, I'm literally teaching marketing, bartering, communication, customer service, the expense structure through those books. So now I'm teaching it to young people through literature. One of the biggest issues we're having in our country right now is little black boys aren't reading.
Right.
Well, I have a little black boy and he does read. So it's not all black boys, but we do need a voice that's out there to help encourage our babies to read more. So we have a fun book. It's a cool adventure. We're teaching entrepreneurship and we have superheroes. So it's just fun, but yet we're learning.
Let me tell you, I think that is amazing. And I love the concept of you and your son teaching these lessons. And that's something that, it's amazing. There are a lot of classes and there are a lot of different organizations that will teach people how to do business plans or how to create a marketing plan or all of these things. But there are very few resources to really teach someone the mindset of an entrepreneur and what it actually takes to really make this thing happen. So I love the fact that you're introducing it so young.
Yeah, it's
because
important.
At this point, he's a sponge. He's a sponge. He's learning everything. He's picking up everything, and
he's special.
Yeah, and honestly, that's because his mother is special. Yeah. I mean, and I really believe that. I really believe that it's those kinds of things that really began to set us up for generational wealth. Yeah, because then it's not just it's not just strategies and tricks that people apply, but it then becomes a way of thinking.
That's right.
And it is a whole different way of looking at the world once you cross to this entrepreneurship side and you really embrace it and you live off of it. It changes everything. So as we move on to this part of the show, I want to talk more about what people who are looking at starting businesses or who have started businesses, where they are now, especially in this climate where things are so shaky. Right now, as you said, with this coronavirus issue that's running rampant at the time of this recording, people are scared. Yeah. People are scared, and things are different. Business has changed in such a short period of time that now they're trying to figure out, wait a minute, we don't want our employees to go in, so now we're going to have them telecommuting, and they're really struggling to make this shift now. So as an entrepreneur, we constantly face challenges. There's always something that changes. What would be the advice that you would give someone who's looking at starting right now?
Well, this is, it's tricky, right? I would say the coronavirus has taken its toll on our country. Excuse me. And it is affecting a lot of businesses that are currently in operation. So ideally, I would say, let's let the coronavirus pass before you open up a business. Number one, if you have a business and you're currently operating through this process, then you have to get back to your absolute core values. And you have to buckle down, become lean in your expenses, because that's the quickest way to save money in any business, to lower your expenses. That's the first thing you do so that you can survive the lack of business that you're having right now, because people are afraid to come out. People are afraid to do anything because of the virus. So you have to narrow down your expenses. And in most cases, if you're able to be just lean in your business, narrow your expenses, you will either break even or maybe even see a profit. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest thing for current business owners. You have to look at your expense structure and narrow it down during this time of hardship. No different than 2008 when the economy crashed.
Right.
Great businesses stayed in business because they got lean. They became lean. They started to trim all the fat and operate in necessity versus overflow. So that would be my number one recommendation for current businesses. But if you are thinking about opening up a business, I would say just wait a moment, keep planning, keep getting your things together, and wait until the virus passes. But some of us as entrepreneurs, we're excited, we're ready to go, we're fired up, so we're going to do it anyway.
Right,
and if you're going to do it anyway, then you do it, and you do it to the best of your ability. But make sure you know your market. Make sure you know where you're going to sell your product or service. Have a very clear vision on who your customer is.
Right.
If you're going to go into business, this is important, period. This
Absolutely.
is important every day, no matter what, but especially in a time of chaos. You want to make sure you know exactly where you're going to sell your product and service. And you want to make sure in a time like this that you're providing a need, not a want.
Right.
And is your business a need or a want? Both businesses will do well. Both businesses do well, whether you're providing a need or a want. But right now in this economy and with the virus that's happening, with the presidential election that's coming up, with the fight between the Democrats and so on and so forth, you want to make sure that you're providing something that people need. And if you're providing a need, then you're going to sell it anyway. When I got into the daycare business, I realized that it was absolutely a need. You don't want daycare. Nobody wants to pay $250 a week for their kid to go to daycare, but you need it so that you can go to work and provide a living for yourself, your family, your children. So daycare was an absolute need.
Right.
So when I went into that business, I wasn't thinking about need or want. I was thinking about finding a way to spend time with my kid. But if you can provide a need in an economy as such, then I think you'll be okay.
And I think that even though you said you weren't thinking about that at the time, honestly, what you found was a need that you had.
Yeah,
you
needed
to spend time with your child. Guess what? That's how so many entrepreneurs start. You find out what is it that I need, and is anybody supplying that? And if they're not, let me find a way to supply it. And guess what? There are other people just like you. But you know what? The other thing that I would say to someone who's looking at a business now, who has a business right now, particularly in this environment, this could be a way that your business really steps up and steps out. It could be an opportunity for you, not to take advantage of, illness or sickness or anything like that, but sometimes being different is better than being better. And what I mean by that, for example, I'm a speaker. All right. We travel all over doing conferences and that kind of thing. Well, I had a speaking engagement in April that was coming up. Well, my doctor, I'm also having surgery within the next week. And my doctor looked at me and told me, don't go. And I said, why? He was like, I'm serious. Don't go. Because I already am a person with a disability, so I would fit in that range of people who may have compromised bronchial pulmonary systems. Right. So therefore, if I got it, it could be a really bad thing for me. He was like, it's not worth the risk, especially being that you're the speaker and, all the interactions and all those kinds of things. And so I started thinking about that. It was like, but wait a minute. We still have a message to get out. We still have a message that businesses and organizations find important and necessary. So how do I now spin to still deliver this content for these groups who may not congregate as a conference, because now the conference has been put on hold. We're not even having the conference anymore.
The NBA just suspended the season last night.
The NBA suspended their season. The March Madness has changed. All kinds of things are going on right now. People are being, warned not to travel if you don't have to. So here's the thing. All of these things are happening. Life is changing quickly and rapidly. So now as the entrepreneur and as a partner in business, now we have to start thinking, okay, how do we respond and how do we get ahead of this curve? And so that opens up a whole new opportunity for us. And while it's scary to change, it's the entrepreneur that rises to those tides of change and still move forward in it. And that's what we have to do. And I think that is the power of entrepreneurship, is still being able to deliver value in changing times, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when you have a business that provides a need, then there's just always value. It doesn't matter what's going on in the economy. There's always value. I think people will always eat.
Right.
People always need daycare. People
Right.
are going to need gasoline. So there's some essential needs that it doesn't matter what's going on. But for those smaller businesses that are providing maybe a want, something that people want, they don't need it, but they want it. There's room for them too.
Absolutely.
And you just have to get even more narrow and determine what sets you apart from everyone else. Number one, why would they buy from you in a poor economy?
Right.
Number two, and if you can figure out those two things, you're going to continue to sell your product. And you may have to adjust your prices slightly, just like we inflate the prices when inflation goes up, right? So same deal, and we may have to adjust pricing, but I think if you have those two components, you're going to be successful no matter what.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I believe that it is the agility of small businesses that makes us so potent, that makes us so powerful, the ability to change and spend on a dime. And I think that especially when we start talking about need versus want, that the idea is how do you position yourself as a need. So yes, you need these eyelashes. It's that yes, you need this. But the truth is that's all boils down to perception and how your customer perceives what it is that you offer them.
Yeah.
And
needs vary from person to person as well. So
absolutely.
Wants vary from person to person because, one female may say, I want my makeup. Another female will say, I need
absolutely
my makeup. And there's no in between on that. So
absolutely.
A need and a want is going to be different for different people. So, don't base your need or want on someone else's because it could be the polar opposite.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even as a small business, the thing is you keep making the offer.
That's right.
And you make the offer in such a way that it's compelling to your customer, that is compelling to your market, and you'll survive. And honestly, especially in our communities, in disenfranchised communities in particular, we know what it means to survive a million times.
What?
We know what it's like to say, okay, we're dealing with this.
That's right.
This too shall pass. This is not time for us to go running and screaming in the streets. It's time for us to adjust and make that change. And that's what we do.
I grew up, sometimes we didn't have electricity. Sometimes we didn't have running water. Sometimes we didn't have food. So you're right. Like, we know what it's like to be in the storm. And you just get through it, man, one day at a time. And you are smart about it. You make the best decision you can for each day. And you take care of your families and you move forward. And it's no different for entrepreneurs. You make the best decision for your business each day. And you mow through the climate that we're in right now because it's going to pass. Right.
No, I agree with that. And that is the position that I think we have to take. Mm-hmm. As we're kind of winding down, if there was one thing that you wanted to share with someone who's looking at starting a business, who's unsure, who really is at the point where they know that this is what they need to do, but they are not sure what the first step is to take, what would you say to that person listening right now?
I would say, you have to believe in you. It's not going to be easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And oftentimes you're going to be traveling the road alone, and people will come when the success comes. So you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. You have to be willing to go through the rain by yourself. Everyone will not believe in your thing, your gift, your passion like you are. So you have to not be money driven, but yet driven by passion and purpose, because those things will get you through when you're not making money. I would say there is always light at the end of the tunnel, but if you're not moving, you're not going to get to the light. So if you can't see it, you haven't moved far enough yet. Keep walking, keep moving, keep working, keep pushing, because if you believe in it and you can visualize it, it can happen. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have bumps and humps along the way. You are. We all do. The most successful people have ran into an ounce of luck, a breaking point that changes the trajectory of everything that they've done. We all need just a little luck, but more than anything, we have to be consistent, and we have to believe in ourselves, and we have to keep pushing and know that you're going to have days where you're by yourself and you're pushing for this thing that you really believe in, but you're by yourself, and it's okay because you're really not. I mean, God is there. He's right. He's right on your shoulder. Like, hey, we're going to do it or we're not. But sometimes you're looking for the people. You're looking for people to approve or to help or to step up. And you're going to have seasons where you don't have that. And that's okay. We all go through it. Just keep pushing. Keep pushing.
Raquel, how can people get in contact with you?
Oh, man, it's easy. You know, I'm on social media. So Instagram is Raquel RT3, RAQUEL RT3 on Instagram. My business Facebook is Raquel M R Thomas MBA, Raquel M R Thomas MBA. My website is www.raquel, RAQUELMRThomas.com, RaquelMRThomas.com. So pretty easy to get to. I'm always moving around the city. We travel a bit, but I'm always here in Columbia trying to make a difference. Super excited about what's coming, but yet there's a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely. Listen, thank you. Thank you so much
for
spending your morning with me. And I am absolutely head over heels in love with the concepts and with the information that you share. And I have to tell you, you are indeed a beautiful soul.
Thank you so much. We all need to hear those things because as successful as one may be, you have hard days, you have long days, you have difficult days. So I think we have to continue to encourage each other. That's so important because when you are seen as the strong one, the successful one, people forget that, you have feelings.
Absolutely.
They forget that you need a simple smile, and that takes you a long way. Sometimes when you're out and about, if you just smile at someone, it helps.
Yeah.
So remember that as you're going through the day. Smile at me, wave at me, speak to me, because oftentimes I need your energy to keep doing what I do.
Well, I tell you, because of our interactions this morning, I will be smiling all day long. So
all right.
You've got that.
All right.
I tell you that's amazing. Please follow her. Follow her on her social media platforms. Visit her website. She has some amazing information. I actually, the first time that I actually heard her was at her boot camp a few months ago, and it was absolutely amazing. So exactly what you hear now, that's what she's like in person, and she's very genuine, and the information that she gives is absolutely valuable. So definitely connect with her. Definitely follow Raquel if you are looking to start a small business and want to get this thing started right. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Absolutely. Well, that is about all the time we have for 5P with LaMondre. As always, I am LaMondre Pugh, reminding you that today is the perfect day to be the change that you want to see. Live big, live full, live authentic. God bless.